Hello everyone, I am Alka1993 and welcome to my first round match of the second Pleiades Tournament. There are 8 people in this. We're playing it round robin, so that's 7 matches in total to play. Last time I finished 4th out of 6, I was in the bottom half. Let's see if I can do better. Now, especially if you've seen the last video where I show you what cards are available in this tournament, you might be wondering, what deck am I using? Well, I chose this one. I decided to take heroes, making use of hero signal into ranger for consistency to get cards, add it with mystic tomato to keep monsters on the field and double summon as a what I believe to be a consistent strategy that I can then use to win. I have 7 tools of mirror force. I'll go into detail about it at the end of the tournament to discuss all the choices, but consistency through heroes, and I have some Vylons for tuners to set up synchro summons. That's what I'll be using. My round 1 opponent is the Enigma, Mike from HR on Dueling book. Let's get the show on the road. Pleiades Tournament 2, after a very fun first tournament that only had 6 people, but it was still very exciting with the way this game works and these tournaments, and now a completely different card pool. It just makes it so fresh and interesting. Always new and exciting. They have a 45 card deck with only 1 card in the extra deck, which my guess is an Xyz monster. Maybe it's a synchro that they really want to summon and they forgot to put in 3 copies just in case. Or maybe it is only a tuner, like 1 synchro, and they only have 1 tuner in the deck. I don't know that. I don't really have the great cards that I want to start with. I have 2 double summons. I have Smashing Gun to destroy something, a double summon to play something with, but I don't really want to set up an Xyz or a synchro as of yet, especially if they have 4 set cards. That's very dangerous, especially considering Mirror Force is a thing in this tournament, so Tetra goes to the graveyard just to help defend myself. I could synchro, I could Xyz, but there were 4 sets. That is far too dangerous, especially considering I don't have a Solemn Judgment or 7 tools to defend me. So I decided to summon Sparkman for a bit more damage than Prism can give. Also, Prism is the only level 4 tuner in my deck. And ooh, they have Scrap Iron Scarecrow. And Scrap Iron Scarecrow, this is something that, it can be very useful because it can be reset. There isn't a lot of spell trap removal. You can negate Scrap Iron with things like 7 tools and Solemn Judgment, but I don't think I realized that when I chose the sets for this tournament, how little spell and trap removal there was. There is some, but one is an archetype specific thing, and there's one other card that's really situational, and I don't think anyone used it, which makes Scrap Iron Scarecrow a very good card, and that's why I have it in my deck as well. And here I decide to go all out and hope they don't have Mirror Force, but they do have Mirror Force. So this is looking great. Luckily for me, they don't have a monster, so I actually have a chance. As long as they don't draw into a monster, and they drew into Alien Shock Trooper. They're using a lot of beaters, beat sticks, high attack mons with Dark Blade, Alien Shock Trooper. That is their strategy, just to take that, hopefully, to the championship victory. I do have my own Neos Alias at 1900 attack, but I put it in defense instead of attack, likely expecting... No, maybe I didn't expect something like miniature, but maybe this way I wanted to force them into attacking, make them more likely to attack, then play Mirror Force. But they have 7 tools of the bandit to stop that. So they have the Scrap Iron Scarecrow face down, and I still have very little to work with. Ranger can get me some consistency, so I summon in attack position, so I can at least get some extra cards. I decided to get Clayman and Sparkman. I run 3 Sparkman and a single Clayman. Clayman, with its defenses, is awesome. I decided to set it in defense. Hopefully they can't get past that. They play Robin Goblin. Every time they do battle damage, I get to discard a card, which means there goes the Sparkman. Glad I set Clayman on the field. Ranger is sent from the field to the graveyard, so I do get an Element Hero normal monster back. So yeah, I do still have a Sparkman. There's another Sparkman in the graveyard. I have Vylon Hep, but that doesn't really do much, and they can just destroy either of these ones. Clayman's still in defense, just hopefully Clayman can protect my life ones. They probably forgot that I added Clayman. They could have known it, but they forgot. So Clayman will hopefully be here for a little bit to defend me, but then it matters what is that 1 extra deck card they have. If that is something like Gemini Pearl, like if it's a synchro, then they need tuners. If it's something like Gemini Pearl, or other useful Xyz, then, or even Evagishki Merogeist, they can get over Clayman and I'm in trouble. Considering they're not summoning that, I think we're good. I have Vylon Prism. I could synchro to Colossal Fighter, but we know they have Scrap Iron Scarecrow, and they probably still have some other stuff. I need to draw into something like Solemn Judgment or 7 Tools, and hopefully stall up until that point. And there, out comes the Gemini Pearl. They messed up the Xyz summon a little bit, but yeah. I corrected them on how to do it. Also, something you've noticed, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the previous video, we're not playing a Master Rule 4. One of the, I wouldn't say complaints, but one of the suggestions we got from in Tournament 1, because there weren't Link monsters, people wanted to play Master Rule 3. And I decided to play Master Rule 4, because that can still affect gameplay. But for Tournament 2, I decided to leave it up to a poll, because I had a few people suggest last time out in Tournament 1 to make a Master Rule 3. So I thought, okay, you want Master Rule 4 or 3? I personally want, I think I thought about 4, although eventually with the deck I have, with the synchros, the double summons, the Xyz that I could do, consistency with Ranger and Mystic Tomato, maybe Master Rule 3 would be good for me. I don't remember what I voted, but more people voted for Master Rule 3 than for 4, so Master Rule 3 it is. When we have Link monsters or anything that uses the extra monster zone in the card deck, it'll be 4, but otherwise potentially 3. I'll leave that up to votes, I suppose. Gemini Pearl, we now know that's their only extra deck cards. If we can deal with that gets rid of some of their cards, and they don't have 7 Tools or Solemn Judgment to stop this Mirror Force, so that is awesome. And now it's time for us to summon multiple monsters so we can get through that Scrap Iron Scarecrow we know that is still face down. Unfortunately, I can't use my effect because I already drew into the final Sparkman, so it'd be an illegal activation. I attack once with Ranger. Hit them on the Scrap Iron, but Sakura's Armor takes out Sparkman, and I still do no damage to them. However, if I can keep the pressure up with multiple monsters, they don't destroy mine. Like, if they can't summon a monster, I might be good. However, they have Warrior returning alive, returning Shock Trooper, but that's not a Warrior, so they can't get that, so they'll probably be getting Dark Blade instead, which is still stronger than Ranger. And they have Double Summon, allowing them a second summon, so that's a Shock Trooper. This is not looking good for Aoka as a start to this tournament. They, with their trap lineup early on, were able to really use it. Random selection, Vylon gets discarded. Ranger goes to the graveyard. Ranger F does get my Clayman back, which is very useful considering they don't have their extra deck anymore. They don't have more copies of Gemini Pearl, so this could be very important. However, they still have a direct attack. So the one card that could really mess me up here and leave me with barely any chance to win is Robin Goblin. If the random selection they make, because I shuffled my hand, so it's random whichever one they click on, whichever one it is. If they hit Clayman, I've basically lost this first game. I take the 1800 and they select Clayman, unfortunately. So yeah, I'll keep playing, but this isn't looking good whatsoever. I set a monster to defend myself, see if I can survive this turn. If they don't have an extra summon, I will. Maybe something cool will come up next turn. Dark Blade hits it. Prism to the graveyard. Shock Trooper hits me for 1900, leaving me at 16. Either of them could finish me up next turn. The other Prism is discarded thanks to Robin Goblin. Yeah, this is not how I hope to start the tournament. It's still a match. It's best 2 out of 3, so I can still come back. This is not how I intended to start it. And yeah, this is like, I know with Sparkman and Hero Signal, I'm not sure how many Rangers did I use? 2. So there is a third Ranger. But I decided here not to play it because why not? Because otherwise I'd still be left with nothing the next turn. So I saw it as a certain win for them. I decided to let them play because, one, I like to finish games and not admit defeat prematurely, and 2, they may reveal another card that they have that I didn't know about, which gives me a little bit more information going into siding and going into the next match, things that I can I know I may have to deal with during the next match, which might give you a tiny bit of an advantage. And that way I also don't reveal that I even have Hero Signal, because I don't think I've revealed that to them yet. No, I haven't. So I just let them attack. And that is game 1 for the Enigma, for Mike from HR. Here's where they realize they should have more Gemnite Pearls, but they did still win game 1, so the possibility is certainly there to get through it and win the first match against me. That wouldn't be good for me, so let's try and change it. I go first in game 2. This is a pretty nice opening. I would have liked a trap card such as Mirror Force to open up with, but this is decent, I suppose. Play double summon to start with. Offensive pressure. 2 set cards. I suppose it's better than 4. Dark Blade attacks the Mystic Tomato, and I summon another Tomato. I get Claymore. That's nice for defense. I'll be keeping that. Mystic Tomato attacks Sangan. Afraid of Mirror Force. I don't want to have to deal with that just yet. They add Exiled Force to their hand, allowing them to destroy a monster via card effect, which means they would lose. I would lose Mystic Tomato's effect. However, they decide not to do that. They activate Robin Goblin now and attack into my Mystic Tomato, and they force me to discard Elemental Neo's Alias. But Mystic Tomato does get me a summon. This is my 3rd Mystic Tomato, but I do have 1 other dark card to keep the chain of tomato summoning stuff possible, but also because Witch of the Black Forest lets me add a monster from my deck to my hand, which is a little help with consistency, and one of the cards it could add due to its stats is Elemental Hero Ranger, which can then get me more of my normal monsters for more consistency. Here I have Vylon Prism. I decided to just get rid of Dark Blade because I don't want to play a big card yet. I want to just attack with these things that I have. Keep Mystic Tomato in defense. Here is an interesting case because I already declared my attack. Then they play Threatening Roar. So if that would be the timing, then Sparkman's attack would still go through, because after Threatening Roar I just can't declare an attack. Attacks are already going on would still go through because that's not stopped. It doesn't negate attacks. However, it's not like I gave them a lot of activation time because I didn't think that they would have Threatening Roar. So I asked them specifically for when they intended to activate Threatening Roar, and they tell me it is on Sparkman's summon. How that is 11 seconds after, so 20. No, 27, 22. Normal Sparkman. That's 11 now, because it's not 20. It's 31 is on the. So I'm not sure why it's at 20 there. Yeah, generally what I do say is 10 seconds for response time. Because having to ask, do you have a response every time? Or is this okay every time? That gets super annoying and super tedious. So what I generally do is if the opponent says something like thinking, and I do that too, if I want some thinking time on potentially a response, I say thinking or just a moment, or generally thinking in the chat to let them know I need a tiny bit more time, and then normally that is okay. If an opponent doesn't say thinking, then they have a 10-second response window. Now, if it's in the declaration of an attack, then I can't really continue with my turn until they take the battle damage, or if it's a monster in defense, just destroy their monster or something like that. So then I suppose they have more time to activate something like Mirror Force. However, if they have, let's say, something that can stop my summon, such as Solemn Judgment, and I XC summon into Gemnite Pearl, and they don't respond with that in 10 seconds, or say thinking about or something like that to have me give them extra time for it, then I continue my turn, and when they then play Solemn Judgment after I potentially have made a different play already after the Exceed Summon, then I don't allow that. That is the way I view things. And they set something instead of saying using it when you enter battle phase, because they did use it 3 seconds after entering the battle phase, and that is fine. So if they would have just said at the start of the battle phase, then that would have been the stop for the attack. However, that didn't work out. But I did tell them that, and they decided to go for it. So I cannot attack. Witch of the Black Forest didn't declare an attack because I'm pretty sure I did attack with Sparkman the first time. No! Ooh. Actually, no. Because I did click direct attack on Witch. However, in retrospect, because we have to reverse the game state a little bit to get back to the activation time with Threatening Roar. Considering that was at the start of the battle phase, the attack declaration of which the Black Forest was never considered to have happened. Therefore, I can still manually switch his battle position. Here comes Exiled Force. Use it to destroy Sparkman, but that leaves their field empty again. So this is looking very good for me. Witch to attack, Tomato to attack. Still don't want to summon something else in case of Mirror Force, but I do want to deal some damage. This is looking so much better than last time. I don't want to set Clayman in defense. I think I want to keep it for a little later. But I think I'm happy with this. Marauding Captain comes out. Another Exiled Force on their part. And they use it to take a Mystic Tomato. Makes sense. That's my strongest attack monster on the field at the moment. And also, if it would be sort of a battle instead, that would allow me to get another monster, potentially. I don't have them, but they don't know that. They discard my Clayman again. Well, that's great. However, Witch activates, and I activate Hero Signal. But they play 7 Tools of the Bandit. So that stops Signal. Which the Black Forest still happens. Also, something else to point out, it's summon effect in the Ranger. It's an optional when effect, which means in this scenario, if I would have gone, because Witch is, I believe, mandatory, yeah, and then Hero Signal is optional. So if I would have done Witch channeling 1 and then Hero Signal channeling 2, like I built in, that wouldn't have stopped me. If I would have summoned Ranger, then I would have missed its activation timing, because the last thing that happened at the time Ranger would have been able to activate was Witch. Resolving its effect as opposed to Ranger being summoned. So that's an activation timing miss. However, I still get it in my hand due to Witch's effect. Get to Sparkman, get some more monsters for later on in case I need them. Drew into Mirror Force, which is awesome. Marauding Captain is gone. They have one set card, and that is, and then I already have Mirror Force. This will be very hard for them to do. I have multiple cards in my hand. Even if they have Mirror Force, I'm able to get through. They play the Threatening Roar early enough, so not much I can do. I even draw the Scrap Iron Scarecrow. This is looking very, very good, knowing that there's very little spell and trap removal. That is something for later tournaments, Tournament 3 and onwards, that I do look at, that there needs to be some monster removal and spell and trap removal. I won't always go for things like Smashing Ground and Fissure and Sakuretsu Armor on the monsters, and not always something like Mystical Space Typhoon, or Cosmic Cyclone on the spells and traps, but there needs to be multiple ways to get rid of both monsters and spells. I feel that is necessary, and I'd say at least one of each of the standard ways, like for monster removal, something like Mirror Force, Sakuretsu Armor, maybe or even Fissure to allow it to happen during your turn, and then spell and trap removal, something like Mystical Space Typhoon. And then there might be more, something like Lava Golem might be one of the cards for monster removal as well. Maybe Monster Golem. Lava Golem may be in the future tournament. Like, you never know, because there's a lot of tournaments still to come. I intend to do this for a very long time because this is super fun to do. And we'll probably encounter Lava Golem at some point and find some interesting strategies with that. For now, it is a 1-1 tie in this match. That second game went a lot better. I was able to use a lot of my consistency. And, wow, this opening isn't bad either. And they're letting me go first as well. Setting up Mystic Tomato to summon something new. That is cool. And I have Scrap Iron and Mirror Force. 2 super useful traps. And they don't play a monster, do they? Don't have a monster? I don't know. I don't have 7 Tools of the Bandits or Solemn Judgment. So I decided not to go with all of my monsters in case of Mirror Force. I do summon Alias and attack with it. They still don't play a monster, so I decide to play a bit more offense to get around the Scrap Iron Scarecrow. But they do play the Sakuretsu Armor. I do attack one in case they maybe forget Scrap Iron Scarecrow. It's unlikely, but it's possible. And that way I also remember in which spot the card is. Like I could always look back in the log, but that way it's in my memory a bit better. And also I remember the card is even there. Because if I just don't attack for 3 turns, then after a while I'll be like, what stupid thing did I do for the past 3 turns and didn't attack? I may forget. So this way I do force them to do that, also to help just with my memory. Clayman down. Hero Signals down in case one of my mons gets destroyed. That'll help out with Missing Tomato. But they still don't have a monster, so miniaturizes face down. I don't want to attack with Missing Tomato. Although I did consider flip summoning it, I decided against it. The Dark Blade hits into Claymans. That's 200 damage to them, and they still can't do much. I was hoping they'd hit Tomato so I could summon something else. So that I would get... Excuse me. Maybe Witch, then they destroy that, then I get Ranger. But that's a little far away. I decided to set another Tomato. They have 4 set cards in the meantime. I play Scrap Iron Scarecrow to stop that, but they stopped that with 7 Tools of the Bandit. So, if without 7 Tools of the Bandit, Solemn Judgment, Scrap Iron Scarecrow would just be the best card in the tournament. Because you can keep using it. Mystic Tomato activates. I also activate Hero Signal, but they have another 7 Tools of the Bandit to stop my Hero Signal. And again, just like in the earlier example with Witch, if I would have summoned Ranger with Hero Signal, it would have missed activation timing. I do summon Witch through Tomato. And I draw into Elemental Hero Ranger, which is awesome. Use its effect. Get 2 Sparkmans. Hello, we get some extra cards in here. I decided to use Witch to attack into Darkblade, but they probably expect that I'm using something fancy to not allow that. And they stop my attack with Scrap Iron Scarecrow. I attack with Ranger, but they stop it with Sakuretsu Armor. I wasn't thinking of using my effects, but I do get Elemental Neo's Alias back this way, so next turn I have a card to get over them. I didn't want to use Smashing Ground. I have miniaturized face down here, so I wanted to use that to take them out. I felt that that would be the better way, and you keep smashing out for something bigger, such as maybe Gemini Pearl. Something that is actually dangerous. Tomato gets destroyed, so I summon my, I think it's my 3rd Tomato now. Yep, so that's all my dark monsters that can be summoned with that out. But then they have Lightning Vortex, a very good play on their part. And that is why they didn't attack Witch. Very nice play on my opponent's part. I didn't have a way to stop it. I didn't have a Magic Jammer. Witch's effect does go off and I add Vylon Prism to potentially go for some synchro plays later. But that was a very, very nice move from my opponent getting rid of my monsters. I did build up some cards. I did get Alias back. I did add the 2 Sparkmans. I got Prism. So, I'm still looking pretty good. I decided to summon Sparkman instead, leaving in attack position. I didn't want to attack into them, because then they just stop it with, with Scrap Iron. Waiting for them to attack into me, so that's hard to stop me. And before damage calculation, I play Miniaturize. Lower Dark Blades level by 1, but more importantly, lower their attack by 1,000, leaving them at 800 attack. And I win it by 800 points. The monster leaves the field, so Miniaturize is destroyed. And now it is time once again to try some attacks. Who do I summon? I decided to summon Sparkman in case of a Mirror Force, so I still have the bigger cards left. Mirror Force is definitely a dangerous card. And I want it, because they don't have a monster right now that I need to get over, like Darkblade, like Shock Trooper. I do summon the slightly weaker ones now, so that I suppose they can get destroyed. And yeah, I did attack, but I knew they had Scrap Iron Scarecrow. They survive. They get into Exiled Force, like the only way they currently have to get is Sparkman, which is good for me, knowing they likely don't have something like Darkblade or Shock Trooper in their hand, and the only set card they have is Scrap Iron Scarecrow. I can now summon twice through double summon. So there comes Vylon Hept. Use Vylon Hept to attack, maybe have them use Scrap Iron on that, but it makes sense. They play it smart and stop the 1900 attack monster from attacking. Earlier, when they stopped the weaker one, they were able to destroy the higher attack one with something like Sakuretsu Armor. One more set card is still looking pretty good, but they just need one good draw, and that might completely change. Elias is destroyed, and Shock Trooper comes out on Vylon Hept. They asked for Mirror Force, so we give them Mirror Force. I could have gone Scrap Iron Scarecrow, because I believe I did set that at the end of my last turn. No, that was Hero Signal. Never. No. Was it? No, it was Hero Signal. Okay. So I did played well. Rid of that monster because I didn't have a way to get over it. Although I suppose I could Singria or Xyz, but then I wouldn't have 2 attacks. And I wanted to keep smashing ground for a little longer. Art of the cards, they will need it. They don't have much to play with at all. They had an awesome start in Duel 1. Did they draw Mirror Force? Did they draw Mirror Force? This next attack will show us Vylon have direct attack for game. It's another Scrap Iron Scarecrow. Didn't think about that. It doesn't win them the game. It doesn't lose me the game. It doesn't lose me my monsters. But they do stall for longer. They have another set card on the field. And it is the card they just had. They just drew into. But, yeah, that was a bluff card because it was Rush Recklessly. They just give me the attack. And luckily, I was able to just manage that. I was scared after that first duel. But I win match 1, round 1 of the second Pleiades Tournament using my Vylon Hero deck. That was a pretty close one in the end. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're looking forward to the rest of this tournament. If you want to join tournaments like this with a limited card pool with a very fun community, then please use the link in the description of this video. It's a permanent link that'll take you to our Discord server. And when you are there, I'll be able to welcome you, answer any questions you might have, and then you can join any of the tournaments there that you'd like. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.